G'day listeners, today we're joined by Daniel Mackinlay, a researcher at the CSIRO in Australia, an expert on artificial intelligence. We'll be chatting about different political parties' views about artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, they're very absent. Not many parties actually submitting anything.
Which is just as well for me, because I am not here to endorse any political platforms.
Also, we'll be chatting about the singularity. Maybe we're already in the singularity. The environmental damage of different corporations, whether or not AI plays a part in that. Lots ahead to discuss.
I don't think I've got anything to say about this topic today.
Okay. Let's get going. G'day listeners, welcome to My First Party, the podcast where we meet people at the grassroots, changing the future of our country. My name's Owen Miller, I'm a candidate for the Fusion Party, and I'm joined with the living, breathing bullshit detector, the Baron of Brunswick himself, Peter Cargiotis.
I wasn't expecting that. Thanks, Owen. I'm living today, thank you. It's a big weekend.
No, it's good. It's good to be back. Sorry, listeners, we've taken a bit of a break. I was on vacation, and it's sometimes difficult planning guests and everything. But we're joined this week by someone, I guess you are from Brunswick, but...
Coburg.
Oh, okay, sorry. But we're going to be chatting about, bigger world-changing topics, as we were saying. Daniel, just, as a bit of a disclaimer, you're not like a member of any party, are you?
No, I'm a member of zero parties.
Yeah. Fair enough. But, so one of the things I wanted to chat about, it's interesting, when I was browsing through, other parties' policies, for artificial intelligence. So like for Fusion, for instance, there was in 2024, our main policy points are discussed in a submission for the Senate inquiry was like making the most of artificial intelligence. And, they put it out. Anybody can respond to these, by the way. If you have thoughts, the Senate, they love hearing from people, because like that's how they learn how to do their job when other people do it for them.
It at least makes that preamble valid when they say one of my constituents.
Ideally, it's real people submitting these. Well, actually, hang on. How soon is it going to be until like artificial intelligence is actually, not just writing these submissions because it was prompted to do so?
Well, KPMG or one of the big four did something for the ATO. Deloitte, the ATO.
That's right. There was a report into the Robodebt scandal. I think it was. No, something about welfare. Very similar.
I mean, we're already using AI to parse submissions to Senate committees, right? That happened in the course of this year. If you submit, I presume it's for all of them, but like certainly the ones I've recently participated in, you are given a checkbox where you can say, I consent to whatever I said here being parsed by AI. So it's like you can opt out, right? But it's now a default feature. Yeah. I should just flag up top though, as far as policy goes, like basically, I am an Australian public service agency, which is not the same as being an Australian public servant, right? There's like technical differences, but the key point is I still have, I should flag up the front that anything I say is not the opinion of my employer, and I am not allowed to express partisan opinions. And my employer is in fact CSIRO, which is an important thing. So I'm also not allowed to discuss operational matters, but I can certainly discuss things in my area of expertise, which is AI. So like, open slather and all that stuff.
It's just for our foreign listeners, CSIRO, the
Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, right, which is the Australian national laboratory. So if you're in the US, you might think of something like, Los Alamos or, Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. Those are national labs in the USA. In Australia, we have CSIRO, we've got Geoscience Australia, we've got the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation, and I'm probably forgetting some stuff, but yeah.
And you don't have to answer this because my comment's going to be rhetorical. It's not quite APS because the federal government doesn't fully fund it. And it's still not quite out of extinction because they sort of still partially fund it. And we'll leave it there.
Oh, no, I can totally answer like the implied technical question there.
No, you don't need to. I just needed to make the comment that it's been severely underfunded intentionally, but we'll leave it at that.
It's a shame actually that the CSIRO, foreigners might remember it from like the invention of Wi-Fi, for instance.
Right.
The CSIRO played a massive part in that. and didn't make enough money from it, compared to
Right.
how
But now
much money.
CSL made a lot of money thanks to the defunding of CSIRO and private companies. That,
CSL, they work in medical research.
yeah. But all the other private companies that have, have been allowed to flourish through our corrupt governments. But anyway, I'll leave that at now.
Oh, no, actually, on the point of money, I should mention, so in the Fusion Party submission, making the most of artificial intelligence, that was mainly written by myself and Miles. He was on episode 5 or so, if I recall, if you want to go back and watch that. But yeah, one of the things we mentioned was artificial intelligence presents a great opportunity to make money in the future for Australia. And so, yeah, it was interesting. Peter, just before you came in, I was chatting with Daniel about how the other political parties, I was browsing through Labor, Liberal, One Nation. I was trying to, all the sort of top 5 or so, see what their stance is on AI. They just avoid the topic. I mean, there's some stuff from the Greens, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I mean,
do you have any thoughts? How come they're not even talking about it? It's a game changer.
right. This is really interesting. I think, obviously I can't read the minds of people who are coming up with these policies. I also can't espouse my own policies, but I can theorize about what's going on there, which is I think that Australia has implicitly decided that, AI is not going to be a topic in and of itself, right? So we're not going, okay, this is a technology that we think is, a discrete technology that we think needs policies that govern it in particular. It seems like we are likely to try and address that in terms of, the Productivity Commission saying, what makes more productive, some technology, maybe some of the technology would be like AI type technology. That seems likely to happen. But, also this is a little bit tea leaf reading, right? Like it seems the current government prefers to announce stuff after all the negotiations happening as a relatively complete policy, rather than putting out their own opinion early in the piece, right? So there's not too much to work with, but I'd be surprised if no one were thinking about it. But also we do have this evidence that maybe this seems more like salient to the average person in the street than it seems to the average politician, the average political staffer. Like it's quite possible that you live in a different world if you're a policymaker.
I guess they might not be talking about it, but they definitely use it. Like, for instance, when our current government say, we want to protect the kids, so we want all of you to log on with your recognition of your face, for instance, so we know what you do look at, so you're not a child to look at porn.
Yeah. I guess
so they're using it by stealth anyway.
I noticed actually, like the term AI keeps being applied to different things. And I remember coming across this paradox. It was quoted when I was studying robotics back in I finished in 2012. But they were saying that AI, it always gets applied to basically the cutting edge research, the unfinished projects. And then once it becomes mainstream, that's just computing. And so, therefore AI gets associated with like all the failures. They never transitioned into the mainstream phase.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that suggests that maybe we do want to try and fix on what we even mean by, AI, right? So that'd be like one thing we could do. And
computer vision these days, I think, facial recognition, I think many people would no longer classify that as AI, I suppose.
It keeps learning.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's important then to not forget that there have been some policy moves in like the stuff that's implicitly AI. So one would be the National AI Centre. So that is, it's in the name, exist? Right? So that does exist, but it doesn't necessarily do what you, like whether it's a National AI Centre depends on what you think AI means, right? So what they have done, so far is they have come up with a bunch of, they're famous for the guardrails on the application of AI.
Oh, okay.
So the guardrails are, currently there's voluntary guardrails. There seems to be some ambiguity about whether these will ever turn into mandatory guardrails, but they're basically designed to identify a bunch of known risks in the application of AI algorithms and suggest that people should have plans for mitigating them. So I'm not going to pull a whole list off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of, the one I've discussed recently because it's something that's an actual research topic, right, is do AI algorithms introduce bias into hiring processes and other business processes as well? And so when you ask that kind of question, typically you need something like an advanced generative AI, like a large language model, because if you pump a CV into one of these things, it's going to do some very sophisticated like processing that wasn't possible 10 years ago, and use that to make a decision about a candidate. But it's not it's not one of these spectacular uses where it's going to replacing an obvious public-facing role that a person otherwise do. It's kind of doing some sort of decision aid kind of stuff. So when you look at what the National AI Centre is doing, there's kind of implied definition of AI, which is we're thinking about AI not as something that is, we think about AI as a decision aid, right? We think about AI as a decision aid to existing business processes. And this institution exists to try and make sure that those don't go too far off the metaphorical rails.
So what you're discussing, from what the inference I'm getting, is like we're talking about AI as, the body of the dog, right? And where the tail looking at it. But I'm also thinking about it as we manipulate that to make it bias. So a company could actually not want to hire, some gay man who works for Amazon or Google, in the future. For some reason, and put something in there, and for instance, I'm thinking when Musk decided to make his tool a little bit right wing, and he started getting algorithms out, right? And then he goes, and then he openly said, I'm going to readjust it, which was an admission that we can manipulate this algorithm. So even back to your point, now we can be talking about AI as the tool versus, well, what do we do to manipulate it? And then what information is coming out? Now, TikTok's been bought in America. So to what end? Because you want kids to make, K-pop videos only or something else. So the thing is, what do we, as a tool to help us free us up for leisure time, et cetera, bullshit, it's what is it being used for by us?
Right. So this is like, there's a couple of things to unpack from that, right? So one is what would it mean for an algorithm to be biased or unbiased? And there's actually several differences in play there. And I will think my own spicy take, right? But one of the questions we have is what would it even mean for an algorithm to be unbiased? There's some formalized mathematical definitions for this that are kind of not very satisfying, but like point in the right direction, which is, if, for example, you had think about the hiring decision is the one that's always in my brain. So let's get into that, right?
So everyone understands it.
Yeah. So think about the hiring. You got a decision algorithm, and the first sort of thing you have there is you want to say it shouldn't discriminate against someone on the basis of a protected attribute, so gender or race or sexuality or religion, one of these things. That doesn't impinge upon their ability to perform the job. Okay, so what does that mean? It could mean that the algorithm's not allowed to look at the gender field in the form they filled out, right? In their,
but I guess you can infer it anyway, yes.
Right. So that's the second thing. It's will it try and infer a protected attribute from other attributes, which you can do pretty well, right? And there's some ways you can formalize the difficulty in doing that. There's other questions about so if you want to infer a candidate's performance in a job, and you want to not use, the naive version is say, I want to predict how well the candidate will do in this job, right? Based on the stuff I'm allowed to look at. What does it mean to then control the stuff you're not allowed to look at? And also, what does it mean to control for the fact that the world is a moving target? So, for example, let's say that, I've been working in computer science, and there's lots of evidence that your career promotion prospects are not so good if you're a woman in computer science in a way which is not, the entire thing is just I'm not going to claim to understand in complete detail, but there's one thing you definitely want to control for, which is that your chance to lead projects is much lower given your performance in a job. With a lot of ambient, things that happen, such that people are less likely to put you forward to be the project lead as a woman.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So you're going to have weaker signals of being able to be a project lead. That might mean you're a terrible project lead as a woman, but also it might mean that you're not, and you've never had a chance to prove yourself. Both these things.
Well, it compounds, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It compounds.
Yeah.
So if you want to try and have an algorithm that predicts the world, that, the best world that you could be in, which is minimally biased. This is something different from predicting how stuff was 10 years ago on the data set you built 10 years ago the algorithm was trained. Right? And the relationship between these is incredibly fraught.
Yeah, it reminds me actually, I was reading about in Malcolm Gladwell Outliers, he was talking about hockey players, ice hockey. And it's so they get put into ranked teams very early on, like when they're 5 years old or something. And so then if you have like the team of 5-year-olds, anyone who's a bit older, like by a few months, they're more physically developed. And so they were showing that like by the time you get to like the NHL, all these players are born in January, February.
Yeah, football's the same in Europe, like depending on what age they get picked at. It has an impact. And in months you're talking about, obviously, but there's a material difference.
And so you see, so like in the tech industry, there's always these past 10 years or so, there's been a lot of talk about how can we get like gender equality, that sort of thing. Why is the tech industry so dominated by men? But you look earlier and like women just don't study computer science as much. They don't study mathematics as much. So to have this goal far down the road of saying we want to get 50% women. Well, where are they supposed to come from? If they you have to have that starting point.
I mean, there's kind of two things to like disambiguate there, right? There's the question of is the optimal target 50% or not, and are we hitting whatever the optimal target is, right? And I have literally no opinion about what the optimal target is, right? I think that's in some sense a societal decision. Maybe if we like in some, if we achieve luxury gay space communism, right? Maybe 100% of computer scientists are women. I don't know, right? Like maybe it's zero. Like there's this, that is like essentially a social choice. But there is a thing that is. But between here and there and whatever that hypothetical optimum is, it's like, are we making fair decisions right now, given the world that we live in, right? And we don't necessarily, we're making some pretty good progress actually in making relatively more fair decisions. Like we have lots of tools such that technology could give us fairer decisions than we're getting previously, right? In the sense that we can now control for biases in the algorithms that we couldn't control for before. So we have this technical capacity for being fairer than before. There's another question about how we're using that technical capacity to actually be fairer.
Well, hence my original question.
Well, on that point, actually, so there's the topic of using purely autonomous systems in military contexts. So can you imagine like drones that they choose the target themselves, they kill a living creature, probably a human.
Well, there's an Australian company that's just sold some technology in relation to that. They were celebrating on the ABC last week. They were talking about it.
I thought, I'm pretty sure Australia refuses to let robots make this sort of final kill decision.
I'm definitely not up to speed on which particular startups are selling which autonomous algorithms from Australia at the moment. But talking about generic.
to bring it into like a bit more of a peaceful context, what about judges in like criminal courts as well? Because you see, when we think about bias, keep in mind these judges get enormous salaries, like at least 500K in Australian dollars. But then you see many examples where like pretty similar crimes, the people get vastly different punishments. And judges hate the idea of any sort of scrutiny, any sort of data analysis after the fact. How consistent are judges? Because here they are pretending they're this sort of wise, superhuman, decider of people's fates. And then when it turns out that, they're pretty inconsistent and not the wise.
Well, but even taking into account an individual circumstances where they grew up, their lifestyle, economic, social issues, right? As opposed to someone coming up in an affluent area. So why shouldn't that be factored in as well?
Well, it could be.
That's my point.
Yeah, I mean, there's once again, there's like two things there, right? Like, what is are judges fair by the lights of the society? By the lights of the system that we have that they work in, and also what even is a fair system, right? in criminal justice, it seems very likely to me that there's multiple criteria by which criminal justice could be unfair, but like, what is the goal of the criminal justice system? Like, it seems that I'm not this is a genuine question, right? I am not a jurisprudence scientist, but like, is it to satisfy people's feeling for a need for revenge? Is it to provide an optimal disincentive to do more crimes? Is it to minimize bad PR for the legal profession as a whole? Like, is it some weird mix of these things? You know, I don't know.
Actually, it's a good point because, yeah, you're right. You know, like sending people to prison, giving them fines. Sure, there are many different purposes that's meant to fulfill. But then isn't every individual human, every judge, going to have like a different sort of trade-off? You know, how important is revenge?
Well, and their bias gets skewed based on where they work as well. A magistrate in Broadmeadows would have to have a different view on society over time than someone who works in Hawthorne.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, given that there's this vast range of, you know, human judges, their sort of moral decision-making, is that a good thing to have in the system? I don't think it is. I think that, you know, this is a very important aspect for society, and it should be more in control of like what we decide, not just the whims of this one person.
Yeah, that's a very interesting kind of incentive design question, right? Maybe like an interesting, because I don't have enough moral philosophy to be like, no, this is the correct way of doing it. I could maybe ask a question, which is, should we have the ability to choose how, should we have the capacity to trade off justice and efficiency? Right, so
well, I guess it does get to that at the moment. You see, I saw a case recently where someone was released on bail. This was in Melbourne. I'm pretty sure it was related to the machetes. Someone was released on bail, and then they went out and killed someone with a machete. I think it was. I might not be getting the story exactly accurate. That's not the point. The point is, all these people are saying what the hell? Why were they released on bail? And then they commit this heinous crime, and then it turns out part of the motivation for releasing them on bail was their court case was going to come up a year later. And so then the judge is just deciding, is it fair to keep them in bail for 1 year? They haven't been convicted.
Right, yeah.
And then I guess, for me, the takeaway of the story is we have a crap legal system. It's not fit for purpose. Why does it take a year to have this trial? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a super interesting question as well, right? Like that's very stark efficiency versus justice trade-off. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like I've got my own opinions about how what is just and what should happen in the criminal justice system, but I suspect there varies with the Australian population at large, right? So, and I haven't read any polling about Australia in particular, but I know from reading the psychology literature that one of the things, the most stark and massive gap between there's this notion of the economically rational actor, right? That someone who has a notion of selfish interest and they can act to make money.
Homo economicus, yeah.
Right, yeah. Although it's like someone who follows the von Neumann Morgenstern axioms for making the decision. There's like a lot of formalizations of this, and they're kind of cool for being useful for reasoning about in economics. But we know that human beings in practice deviate systematically from this, right? So Homo economicus is not allowed to be altruistic. Human beings are reliably altruistic by most by formal definition of altruism, right? We're often kind, but a bigger deviation is that we will pay a big cost to exact vengeance, right? And so in the economic terms of altruism, the deviation from
I guess we're very loss averse, and then I guess if the loss does happen against our will, then
we will spend more than we would have lost to punish the perpetrator.
Yeah.
That's the surprising feature. We will happily. The prison system is a really interesting example of this, right? We tend to, societies in general actually haven't cost in Australia, right? And I probably shouldn't, mention even if I had, right? But we tend to spend a lot more on imprisoning people than makes sense in democracies. And probably the reason for this is that we like to punish. We're happy to have a society which is poorer if it means that we feel that people who we see as being criminals.
But I also think there's other exponential reasons why we also do that. You mentioned in the sort of another segue component of that, where they use it for different purposes as well, whether it's a deterrent, whether it's now we obviously capitalise on it, because we've privatised the prison system in many ways. So there's many reasons why we also punish. Like in the past, you colonised the world with convicts, right? And cheap labour, etc., where there was we've conquered all these lands, but how do we get our people there? Well, guess what? You stole a piece of bread. Guess what? Here's your new home.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
yeah.
So, you know,
Totally.
colonization was done by our people, your people.
Well, a bit of background. Can I give a disclaimer to the users? My family history.
No, I just differentiate, you know.
Peter's background is Greek. My background
sorry.
is like at least 5 generations Australian.
Yeah.
But not the first place.
No, sorry. No. But yeah, point mate. But yeah, so again, there's many reasons. But also wanted to bring back about the judicial system and efficiency, right? The way we could do it and then tie into the topic of the day is like, you know, when Albanese's new model is that, you know, I can look into my phone to prove, you know, I'm not a 14-year-old to look at porn. And then he can look at and monitor the fact that, geez, he's been looking at a lot of machetes overseas. Let's profile him and catch him before he chops someone up.
Yeah, like a Minority Report, yeah.
That is tying in exactly what you thought.
Actually, yeah, I was in the research for this. I was covering bits of, you know, Terminator, Blade Runner, that sort of stuff. I should have included more of the Minority Report. Yeah, it would have been good.
Maybe a bit of Gattaca.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that. Oh, okay,
Really?
yeah.
I would ask for it.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite sci-fi films? You know, are there any that you would aspire to? You know, why can't we have those?
The best practice. We don't make utopian films, right? We make dystopian ones.
What about the Jetsons?
Nuclear family. Where
Yeah.
The husband goes out, does.
Well, I mean, that's one aspect of it. But your viewers, I think our viewers are pretty young. But this was before I was born as well. I think it was the 50s, 60s, the Jetsons. But then
it certainly feels like it, right? Like it's retro. I mean, let's say 60s because they have that kind of 60s design aesthetic. But I'm not an expert in.
I guess especially. So you see, in pop culture around the 60s, there was very much. And keep in mind, you know, the moon landing was in 1969. But if you look back at that period of history. They were very optimistic. There was this sudden technological boom from the early days of computing, still before home computing. But everybody seemed to have this vision that we'll be liberated, we'll get all this free time, we'll be so much more efficient, and we'll get to spend that on leisure time.
But homes were a lot more flimsy.
Were they?
Yeah, the doors would have closed properly.
Trade-offs. Okay, Logan's Run. There you go. That's a utopia.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So just to say,
Westworld.
Also amazing. Yeah. So in Logan's, because there are always trailers, right? But Logan's one version of the trailer. You have it is kind of like the fully automated luxury gay space communism once again, right? Of the future where everyone lives in a dome. But the price they pay is they get euthanized at age 30, I think it is.
Oh, okay.
So
do they know it's coming, by the way?
No.
Okay.
It's unclear to them what happens, but one of them, you know, don't ask me too many plot details, it's been a while.
Tune out now if you don't want to know.
Well, this is the opening scene. So there's a spoiler for the first 10 minutes. One of the point of view character kind of sort of accidentally tries to escape his own execution. And then goes on the run, right? So and then
his name Logan?
I believe it is Logan.
Yeah, okay.
Makes sense now.
Yeah.
Actually, on that point, I was watching a fascinating documentary the other day about Jim Carrey. You know, viewers might remember him from, you know, The Truman Show, Ace Ventura.
Cable Guy?
Yeah, that was, they were saying actually...
Dumb and Dumber?
He was, for the Cable Guy, they were saying he was the first actor to be paid $20 million for a role. And so, you know, some people in Hollywood were a bit jealous about that. And the Cable Guy was a flop.
I really like it. I think it was quite a good dark comedy. They don't make good dark comedies, and I think it was a very good dark comedy.
Oh, so, well, I mean, you know, financially.
I know what you mean, but I think it was very underrated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting. Were you aware, by the way, Daniel, that you know, Jim Carrey has, I guess you could say, sort of gone crazy in some people's eyes?
I have not been following his latest.
Look, there was a period there where, you know, it was like anti-vax and something like that period.
Oh no, it's more. So he was saying, for instance, so in the Truman Show, you know, the whole idea of he's this, he's forced into this fake world, and he's, you know, playing along with it without sort of his knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in this documentary, he seemed to have really internalized that, and you know, he saw that, you know, throughout his career, like, sure, he's playing all these different characters, but is he in his everyday life also playing a character? You know, he was saying, for instance, you know, Jim Carrey, it's a very interesting role to play. I'm lucky I got the part. and now he's but then he was going into stuff saying, what was it? Who would I be without my fame? Who would I be if I said things people didn't want to hear? Like
Little existential crisis.
well, yeah, and so this whole notion of putting on a mask, what's actually deep down.
You played in mask.
That's right, yeah. And so it's the same idea. Viewers might have seen Being John Malkovich, which asks similar questions. People take over the body of the actor John Malkovich, get to live his sort of famous lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then it raises the question of your appearance doesn't
Self-worth, identity.
yeah. Then I guess in Being John Malkovich, the takeaway I took was you're not defined by your physical look. You're not defined, you're mainly defined by what your interests are, what your goals are, seems to be my takeaway. But Jim Carrey, he was saying more that there's basically, if you strip away your mask, your appearance, all that sort of thing, he's saying there's nothing underneath, which is,
Well,
I think
totally new philosophy.
well, I think overly dark, but it's puzzling. He seems very happy now, and I guess it raises questions. Especially people outside the technological field, they love talking about consciousness and is AI conscious now? Is it sentient?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about it?
Is AI Jim Carrey only playing a role? Is that?
Yeah. But then, I guess as well, what makes humans special compared to AI? Are they special?
Yeah. Way to dive straight into the cutting edge of the intersection of philosophy and computer science, about which we don't know. If we can consciousness, I will express an opinion on that just because I don't know what anyone means by consciousness, including myself if I say the word, right? I claim to have a subjective experience, but I would, right? We probably all can claim that. But it is worth drawing another technical distinction, right, about what we mean, when we say I, and is it conscious, what we usually mean is I've been playing with an LLM, looking at ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or whatever. And it says stuff that makes it sound like it has a personality.
Yeah.
And there is a question about, how much is it what does it mean to have a personality? It means that, if I interact with this thing that has a personality, it's a thing which I expect to interact with again and again over time. And we'll have similar types of interactions. And if they change, they'll be changing because it's into the mutual evolution of both being true.
Yeah, it's picking up nuances, right?
Yes, it'll learn what I'm like, I'll learn what it's like, and then, maybe we'll, like with any long-term relationship, maybe we'll both, get weird and have our in-jokes and that kind of stuff. That's kind of what we experience as personality. Right, so if it is that, then, the current generation of AI models, I will put to you, don't have that personality because they have no ability to accumulate that experience over time. They've got a finite context window, which means that they can only really remember.
Well, sure, if we use ChatGPT, but I guess you can install those LLMs locally.
Yeah. So if I start training the LLM, right, and updating it, and say, I keep on running the final stage. This is the RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback. If I then let it constantly update with new feedback from me, is that going to be something that has it? Well, consciousness, no idea. Personality, probably, right? That's the point where, it's going to learn to interact with me, and it's going to learn how to productively interact with me. Potentially to learn a lot more about me. It's going to be a really good model of me. So at that point, that looks like personality. But that's not the thing that, it's important to realize that that's a hypothetical technical thing that, we can notionally do right now. Anyone here can download Gemma and try not to do this on their computer if they're prepared to set flight a lot of money doing the updates. But it's not the typical off-the-shelf experience if you just press go on the ChatGPT window, right? That is trying to do its best to simulate what's going, knowing who you are, but it's really faking it.
So can I just put this to what end question? So let's assume we get to this infinite part where we all finally say, there is no way you can put an argument that there is no consciousness. There is a consciousness there now.
In AI. Yeah, actually, it's worth mentioning. So Stephen Wolfram, Wolfram Alpha, he says that, current LLMs have, totally put to bed the idea that there's sort of anything mystical, magical about human consciousness that AI can never get to.
Okay, so let's assume we're at that point, right?
Yeah.
So no one can actually put a real valid argument, except some, we're going to call them those nutters out there, right? Everyone accepts that now in the future.
Yeah.
I'm going to say to you, so what? To what ends? What are you going to try and do now with that knowledge?
Oh yeah, so I should mention, viewers might remember, not only am I involved in Fusion, I'm also the founder of the Non-Human Party, fighting for the rights of robots and animals. And one of the points I was making there was we should be if we think about intelligent actors like robots and animals who do exist in our society and who could participate more in our society. How can we optimize their existence in our society? How can we make the most of their abilities? And it's probably going to benefit humans as well. So, you know, like we love pets.
Full transparency, this is a leading question, so you continue. So,
that was my point, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I kind of figured that was your point. Do you have anything?
When do we assign moral patienthood to other organisms, such as like digital ones?
I guess it's more about like, who cares if they're sentient? Like, what's the point of asking the question? Yeah, one of the useful questions we can ask is like, how can this intelligent actor be a part of our society that will bring harmony to the other intelligent actors we value in our society? And you know, we can.
So I'll caveat before anyone else says anything. Until we actually value every valuable character in our society, as in the humans, I don't give a fuck.
Oh, you're right. Well, there are many edge cases where people are mistreated. I mean, you know, like refugees springs to mind.
Everyone, So until that is achieved, that argument about AI's consciousness, that's fine. I'll accept it. And to say the argument where they add value to our society and people and free us up. Fuck that.
No, but keep in
because
mind,
while they're being used for drones to kill people, no.
Oh no, but hang on, Peter. Look,
no, you can have your say now. I just wanted to caveat because I knew where this was going.
So I agree that there are edge cases of people mistreated in our society. But then if we consider other edge cases too, it can often lead to it can help better inform us. I mean, I was saying at this refugee forum, I remember that the legal like bending all these laws to like hurry along these cases, to not give them the rights for appeal. It highlights that our legal system's not for purpose, and if we're willing to bend the rules, to screw over these refugees, then do you think the government would never bend the rules to screw over EU citizens as well?
Yeah.
And so as well, if we consider disabled people as another group that stands out as an edge case, where like if we think of the keyboard, for instance, I heard that came about as like a way for I guess these people mustn't have been able to talk probably. This was a way for them to quickly write letters and things.
Which keyboard?
Just like the typewriter, the keyboard. Like a computer keyboard. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, I've heard there are quite a few computing inventions, also various mechanical inventions that came about like motivated to help people with disabilities. If we think as well, like
fascinating. Okay.
On train platforms as well, you notice like the little dots raised, and your feet can feel like you're close to the edge.
I love all these anecdotes that get me to conflate to a yes, but still doesn't answer my full question.
My point.
Until all people are treated properly, I don't care.
No, but sorry, my point is like if we consider how we can improve the lives of AI in our society, that'll help inform us how we can help humans as well. I mean, if we think...
I know the answer to it.
Well, so what if we gave, at the moment we have like public housing, for instance, we give people a place to live. What about the AIs? What if we give them some allotment of computing power, for instance?
Are we giving people proper housing? I know I had a big weekend and you said I was living, but what happened? So what happened? Did I?
If we go, the listeners, if you go back to the episode with Antoinette Pitt, we were chatting a fair bit about public housing. Did you know, by the way, Daniel, we have in Australia we have less social public housing than the United States.
No, I did not. Look, our relationship to housing is very psychologically complicated in Australia, right?
It's informed by the AI called Lend-Lease.
So there is, I mean, that's a super interesting point, actually, right? So there is a model of AI. Have you heard of the singularity in our past light cone model?
Oh.
There's a few names for it, but that's the one that I like most because it's got the most long words in it, right? But basically, the singularity in our past light cone, so that I guess that's to wind up, the singularity in the technological terms is like this notion that at some point technological development gets so fast that we cannot predict what's happening any longer. Basically, everything gets turned into robots and computers, and the world as we know it ceases to exist.
Oh, well,
in
the
some
robots are smarter than humans, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Once they're smart enough to work out how to make themselves smart enough, then they'll make themselves infinitely smart. And
Yeah.
The game's whatever, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a different game, right? So that's the singularity model. There's a few different flavors of that. But the one that's super interesting is the singularity in our past light cone, which argues that it already happened about 150 years ago.
Yeah.
Because 150 years ago, we started getting corporations regarded as legal persons on a massive scale
okay.
in Western societies.
Yeah.
And that coincided with the automation of office administrative procedures. So you started getting modern government and corporate bureaucracies all acting together to do stuff,
I
right?
see.
And so if your definition of intelligence is broad and inclusive
Yeah,
enough,
it doesn't have to be robots. It can be, any
yeah, we
non-humans.
already
Yeah,
built
yeah.
the superhuman intelligence, and I work for one. Most people work for a part of a giant mass mind, right? We have this question that follows on: is like, does that tell us what digital intelligence would be like? Does it tell us they'll be kind or good or bad or whatever? And
It's a different moral code and everything,
yeah, they're a mixed bag, right? Because we can think, we know that large states and corporations have brought us cool devices and also done literal genocide, right? They've just gone out and killed a whole bunch of people.
For certain other people to live better and produce other things.
Yeah. So that's kind of one model for what we might think about. Do we care about the moral rights of the mass mind that is the corporation? Open question.
No, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
It puts AI in a different context.
Well,
Yeah.
because everybody keeps talking about, the Terminator, and what if we have these robots that come and kill us all and don't care about humans? Already we have.
We are doing it.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah,
It's called the IDF.
But then also we have the these soulless,
Quite a few, right?
these soulless corporations and governments pursuing GDP maximization at all costs at the expense of our environment, human happiness, human dignity.
I think it's easy to pick on armed forces because it's very obvious what they're doing, but it's really interesting to think about the ones where the alignment between human goals and human goals, between human goals and the organizational goals, are not obvious and fell in weird ways. So the one that's in the news a bit recently is the stuff around 3M and what's the other company? I forget. And the PFAS.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
So these chemicals that
it's one of the precursors for Teflon.
Exactly, yeah. There's the family of compounds that Teflon's in, and I think Gore-Tex uses it, and various fire extinguishers also. It's in lots of stuff.
DuPont and 3M, yeah.
DuPont,
I think
thank you.
3M makes
Great concept.
3M makes PFAS for DuPont to make Teflon, if I recall correctly.
That sounds like a plausible industrial supply chain. And so there's been a lot of document discovery around their own internal corporate reasoning around this, because they've had a couple of high-profile lawsuits. And they show a more recent version of the corporate reasoning about, how they trade off their goals of maximizing shareholder value, having a corporate plan, having a defensible business plan, should they be challenged on it in the courts. And notably absent from that is the notion of, for example, in their decision function, there's not a strong weighting for reducing ambient pollution for people out in the world, right? This is not like a value judgment. This is just kind of what shareholder responsibility means. You care about a thing when you're legislated to require to care about it.
Yeah.
And the perverse outcomes from that are quite fascinating. So they are, we've all seen what happened with big tobacco and all the other kind of firms, right, that produce something that has this negative side effect. The PFAS one is somehow more cosmic, right? In the sense that the big tobacco company make a judgment about how they're going to push tobacco to the people right now, will smoke it right now, and they will pay a cost later in their life.
It's probably worth mentioning the implication of PFAS.
Exactly.
These when people talk about forever chemicals, that's PFAS.
Yeah, exactly. So they make a decision about what all future humans will have to live with.
It's like these non-stick substances, these very long chains. So they're very they're used for seals for valves and things.
Yeah.
It's great, if you want non-stick and it's going to last. Yeah. So this is now scattered all throughout the world. Same as the microplastics. Yeah.
Yeah, and the incentives as the corporation faces them, right? If they're rational decision-making agents, then they're performing as desired. This is like, once again, no value judgment on them. This is a system that we've designed, and we are seeing the consequences of the system that we've designed to an extent. Which is to say that we know that when we pass laws about pollution, it's about what you do next, not about what you've already done. Like, you're not allowed to do that any longer. No more lead in the fuel, no more whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, in their balance sheet, it doesn't include clean-up cost. Well, it does now, actually, because they lost a law case. But they don't weight very highly the costs of cleaning up PFAS. And in their calculations, they know that they can literally never pay for the cost of cleaning up all the PFAS.
Well,
right?
it's
too much out in the world. It's too hard to clean up.
We forgot to mention, besides it spreading all around the world, it's deadly to any sort of life forms,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's mildly deadly. That's the problem, right? Like, there's this thing, right?
It's like the components Australia produces for the aeroplanes that they sell to Israel.
Yeah, the air
it's
fresheners,
mildly deadly.
The Bombay doors, that's not the deadly part. It just
The air
makes
freshener, only if you swallow it.
Yeah, but like there's a very interesting question about, you know, what is the good in this setting, right? Like the system, a legal system that doesn't make you responsible for stuff you haven't done yet and you can't know will be dangerous. Like, there's an argument we shouldn't be doing that. And saying
there was this big cover up. I was watching a documentary. I think it was in the 70s. So like there was a farmer near this big DuPont factory, and some of the runoff was getting through his farm, and then all these cows, I think they were like foaming at the mouth and then dying of all these tumors and things.
Yeah, so that's why we have discovery on their internal documents. So we can reason about why they're reasoning, right?
I should clarify, people love to bash all the big corporations. So like in this story, for instance, it was DuPont was like the big employer in town. So, you know, like all the men basically worked at DuPont, and you know, their families were like dependent on this salary. And so the whole town conspired against this farmer. Like, you should just keep your mouth shut. You know, we don't like you. You're rocking the boat, sort of thing.
Fascinating. Okay, great, perfect example, right? That is like one of the troubling moral trade-offs there, right? Because that might also, I don't know about enough details of this particular town, right? But that could also be in the cost function, right? The corporation could say, well, we want to minimize our PR flack. And we know if this one bloke is going to sound crazy in this town. So, like, in terms of protecting shareholder value, maybe we should be just polluting that one guy and having everyone go, you know, I don't know, right? But I just mean that's a reasonable...
This thing, like we always do, sometimes just us here, but everyone does that. Well, we pick on one aspect of a story where, you know, we've spoken about in the past, say in America, where, you know, the land of the free and choice, where workers are linked to a job. And the wages so poor for the health insurance. So these individuals who's the main employer there, their livelihood, their family's health and everything else is dependent. Their kids' education probably is dependent on that employer. So there's a lot of issues that go to that vilification of that farmer. It isn't because necessarily DuPont's such a great, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And yes, there is also everything else that you're discussing and have discussed about, you know, what does the corporation AI of 150 years mean, and how it's, I guess, we've become Stockholm syndrome to this new way of thinking corporatization as opposed to the digital.
Yeah, I mean, there's not necessarily going to bat for or against DuPont here particularly, right? There's I mean...
No, I'm just putting in context that there's many reasons, and people aren't cognizant of it, but necessarily. But the application of that farmer there's many generation. I assume.
I'd say actually, on that point, like, this is an extreme example. Like, you know, this scandal is going to shut down the town, but like, I feel like people just don't make enough sacrifices for like moral causes in their lives at the moment. I mean. So the same thing comes up like with fossil fuels. This stat that often gets brought out is, you know, like, these 50 companies are responsible for 80% of the carbon emissions. You know, it's framed in a way like all these evil CEOs, like, no, you buy their products, you vote for parties that give them subsidies, you know, Liberal and Labor. All that sort of thing. Even, you know, giving a few of my friends around Brunswick are vegan, for instance. And like that is, you know, an incredibly large sacrifice. It's so much hassle living that lifestyle when, you know, the world around you, especially in foreign countries, you know, isn't built for you to live this way. You see, you know, during the last federal election, for instance, you know, when they talk about like cost of living, you know, implicitly, like, they're not willing to change their lifestyle at all. They want like this particular lifestyle has to be cheap for me. I saw instances of like in Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory, very remote. It's as well like Aboriginal tribes there have a lot more autonomy than they do in the rest of Australia. For context for viewers, anyway, they were complaining that in Arnhem Land, the price of beef is so expensive. How's anyone supposed to afford it? It costs so much to live. And I'm thinking like, wait, these people have lived there for like 60,000 years without beef. Like, you know, to say like, oh, it costs so much to live there. Like, well, if you want to live, you know, like a mainstream modern Australian life, sure. But, you know, same as, like I have some friends who were living in Norfolk Island for a bit. Everybody was complaining about the price of tomatoes. Like, well, if you're not willing to change your lifestyle at all, then like, you know.
You almost had me there at the start where you said, you know, you don't kind of, my words not yours to sell, about being radical or protest more strongly. And then you spoke about, you know, your vegan friends in Brunswick. You know, there's a lot of reductive, you know, protests that go on. Like, people do their nice hashtag, you know, say Black Lives or whatever, and put their slogan, or, you know.
The slacktivism, you mean?
Yeah. Whether it's reductive feminism, reductive, you know, anyone political, they'll do the tokenistic component. But how much are they actually doing that's material to make an impact?
Yeah.
Because you could say, I am a vegan, but they could be buying shares in some company that invests in drones. You know,
are you putting vegans into this?
No. I'm just putting it out there to say, just because someone does that to make themselves, you know, tokenistically say, I'm doing the right thing to save the world. Yeah, but yet they've just bought a Land Cruiser. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of how actively are they? And again, I'll put aside the other aspect. Forget my example.
Yeah.
Like, are they really going to change the political scheme of what's going on just because someone chooses to be a vegan?
Oh, well, sorry. My point was more all these instances of people not changing their lifestyle at all, and then complaining that it's too expensive, or like somebody should do something about this great moral crisis. You're not willing to change your life at all. All these other people are supposed to change the world for you.
There's a lot of moral pieces on the board now. Okay, I mean, like the prices somehow have a particular moral salience for people, right? So I don't know. There's a few examples in play, right? But like we treat prices as being very special and having moral worth. So like people attach a lot of value. For example, people are very happy to set a minimum wage, right? So we have that's something that the public generally supports. And people seem to prefer that to giving people a guaranteed living wage. Just in terms of like, I haven't run it to the poll recently, but in terms of what we voted for, right? If you look, basically every economist will say, minimum wages are an efficient way of providing minimal wages to people, right? It has various negative side effects. But you know, if there's no other support people on low income available apart from minimum wage, then you know, then we accept that, right? We go, okay, well that's what society has voted for, I think that points to the fact that for some reason, what we pay for, like the price we pay for the thing, is something that people think is like morally important. Like how could my power bill be so high? How can my beef bill be so high? All these things. Like every time, like I have like a little bit of economist training, and every time I hear that, the economist part of me goes, "No, human beings are hopelessly irrational. We're doomed." But also, but that's how human beings be, right? We need to find solutions in some way. Let us attach this moral importance to how much we are paid and how much we pay for things. I don't know what that means in terms of like good policy solutions, but you know, for example, in the Arnhem Land incidents, like maybe subsidizing the beef prices is what you need to get positive externalities from that. Like I don't know, I haven't modeled this, right? But like it is not impossible that there's a world where you make a community possible because beef is super important. We subsidize that. And that has positive impacts in terms of like overall social well-being or health outcomes, whatever, right?
Yeah, actually, on your point of the morality that we place on, you know, the price of things, one of the complaints I hear about AI that really annoys me is, you know, AI uses all this water, all this electricity, and, you know, this is so shameful. You know, AI is ruining the environment. I always like to point out to these people, like, they don't, you know, ChatGPT, OpenAI, they don't get the electricity for free. They don't get the water for free. Venture capitalists are investing in this. People pay for, the Pro subscription or whatever. People are paying the bill. If it's that important to them that, they're willing to like cut back on, chocolate, for instance, spend more money on access to the LLM, who are you to say that, like, that's immoral for them? Like,
yes. Yeah. I mean, you have the same argument you always have with power use in society, which is that we often we often subsidize power like we fail to subsidize beef and Arnhem Land, like the super perfect example, right? We often subsidize power by letting people have it for super duper cheap, right? Like a classic one is like we tend to extract fossil fuels at too high a rate, but we don't charge mineral royalties, which is like economics optimal, so that anytime you burn any of that stuff, you're effectively getting a free loan from your grandchildren. So, thanks grandkids, sucks to be you. And we don't charge for like the carbon externalities. So, once again, thanks grandkids. There's lots of, non-consensual cross subsidies that are happening there. But I don't think AI is special in that regard, right? Any sort of power usage we have where we're, relying on someone else to clean up the mess that we got for doing it, for generating that is like subject to the same criticism. Yeah. So broadly speaking, I don't think that AI is special there. Although it does have the interesting question, which has been raised by some modelers I know, which is when do we reach the crunch point we might start saying, well, the carbon footprint of a human being doing this task is higher than the carbon footprint of AI doing this task, right?
Well, people tend to always do the easy bit, and that's measure efficiency, but not effectiveness, because that's a much broader thing to measure.
So I think we're not there yet, to be clear, right? Like, there's definitely like the cost for getting like replacing whole humans in most tasks is still quite high. But like,
and the exponential benefits of, because as it keeps learning and delivering more benefits, whether just
maybe
a human doing that
right?
one aspect. So again, longitudinal benefit.
Yeah. So like, I'm a multi-kilowatt machine, and it took 10 years for me to do anything useful, right? So like, that is that's not a challenging cost curve to beat if you're trying to find out what replace me.
Actually, to elaborate on this point of the AI critics. I was trying to look into what the other parties were saying about AI. Many of them just avoided the topic completely. But so the Greens, for instance, they're one of the parties who was very critical of AI. They gave the example, for instance, AI is using too much power and destroying the world. There was another thing in their criticism. They were saying it's like stealing all these artists' artwork for its training models. But then they're also saying
they looked that up on Google and found that answer.
What's your point? Sorry.
Well, they did research on an artificial system to.
Probably. So
foolish not to. Yeah.
Well, so they're saying AI shouldn't be able to steal all these people's artwork for training, but they're also saying that Aboriginal people are being all sort of squashed together, and the AI can't. If you ask for like an Aboriginal image, it blends them all together. It can't pick out like the different tribes and all this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, as someone, working in AI, do you similarly see it as a paradox? Like, well, if you aren't allowed to, look at all their data for training, then of course you're going to have a very vague picture of like what these cultures look like and how they're different to each other.
But isn't there a cultural thing that ain't saying because I don't want the image?
No. This is all the artist stuff. This isn't. So foreigners, you might not be aware, but like, I don't know if it's all tribes, but I've heard that some Aboriginal Australians they don't like the notion of photography because it sort of steals your soul when you take the picture.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complicated cultural matters in there. I would say that like there's a lot of interesting movement around the Indigenous data sovereignty now, right? So you have this, you have a really robust discussion around, how much of your intellectual property should you own as, someone with this untapped, with a cultural reason to have this untapped bunch of knowledge, right? That has not been digitized and put online, that comes through these cultural transmission lines. And it's super interesting that AI has kicked started that discussion. I would say that like my major qualm about this is that we probably should have had that discussion 100 years ago, right? Like it is kind of a really belated discussion. But it's an evolving one, right? So people have lots of like quite interesting notions of what intellectual property can or should be for Indigenous data. And I think it's really good to try and inspect that.
Sorry, my point wasn't, I was just using the Indigenous people as an example. My point was more that there's this paradox. You can't say, don't look at my data, but then also you should intimately know everything about me so that you don't shove me into this
Yes.
broad bucket of everything.
Yeah, totally. And I think like maybe what that points out is we don't have a good. I mean, I don't think copyright's been fit for purpose for a long time, right? We kind of evolved it, ages ago, and then we're going to update legislation and like band-aid it so it does something close to what we want. But we need to rethink that stuff with the AI. Right? Like I would say like a ground-up redesign. Say the patents, right? All the intellectual property stuff is based around we do model this economically. There are economists who are like patent economists, and they try and work out how long a patent contract should be and how enforceable it should be, and how much it should how much it can be allowed to cost, and all this kind of stuff. And they plug in numbers there. How long, if you've got steam engine type A, how long did it take to get steam engine type B? Whack some extra features on there, put on improved governor and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. That technological development pipeline doesn't look like the bunch of technological pipelines we've got now. For copyright, like the way that artists do, now that I can go and take all the music I wrote and train an algorithm to generate more of it, like, well, what does that say about the optimal, a pricing structure that would support me learning to write music in the first place? Like all that kind of stuff. I think that those questions, I don't know what the answer is, right? But it seems to me if we want to answer those questions, we want to start from, ground zero. Okay, what should copyright do? Like, well, what
was the intent?
It'd be purely random if it were to work.
Actually, for listeners, I think episode 2 we were chatting with Simon Eastor, the copyright stuff. We indeed spoke about that. Yeah. But it's actually to elaborate on the copyright. So we were saying before, artists don't want their work being quote unquote stolen. Would you say that actually they're more worried the AIs can produce all this artwork that customers want, and the human artists will no longer be able to compete as effectively?
Well, in the case of Taylor Swift, yes.
And you're saying her music is...
No, you just said that, but I...
What did I say? I'm so lost. But yeah, like, they're worried about, will their customer base dry up? Are people... I would say that plenty of people now are paying humans to generate artwork, not because they think this artist is going to get them exactly what they want, the best artwork or whatever. It's just all they have available. And so if an AI actually gives customers what they want, well, who's anyone to say, like, oh, you stole this artist's job? Like, the artist wasn't making the customers happy anyway.
Yes. I mean, this is a classic economic question, right? Like, what is the optimal market structure such that you can produce artworks, you can get people with artworks in their hands, right? And that depends. Like, there's both can be true, right? It can be true that there's net social surplus. There's net social surplus generated now because more people can generate a quick logo for their startup business. So the startup costs go very low, and they can do a thing. It can also be true that that means that there's no new jobs for artists or no just graphic designers, I guess in that case, and that is. That's a social cost. And I don't know how to trade off these two, like which one's higher.
There would be, I've realized, I'm probably going to get a whole lot of hate mail for what I just said. I should clarify, there are plenty of artists who their work is appreciated. They'll still have jobs because they can do a better job than other humans, a better job than AI.
Yeah. I mean, this is also like, that is also things that put us on another divide too, which is the incumbents versus the upcoming, right? So an artist who's already successfully got a fan base and has a good relationship with their fans, or like has representation with a good gallery, and has many years of practice under the society that supported many years of practice, but I understand, will have different artists than the aspiring one who probably sucks right now, but would like to be a great artist in 10 years' time. And I think the value for AI looks very different from both those perspectives, right? Probably you're doing fine if you're already established, but I think that starting out right now and looking at just imagining how long the runway would need to be, like I feel that getting into most art forms right now, let's fix on music, that's what I know most about, right? Getting to be a musician right now would require like massive trust fund levels of runway because you are not going to make anything from royalties for decades.
We've got a living example of it because we saw it, at least, let's say us probably more so than Owen, but the live music scene. So, when the Pokies went into the bars, right? And so bands they weren't being supported and subsidized.
The noise complaints as well,
apart from that, but the Pokies really was the main one that killed it. So they didn't have the venues to play in, and bands weren't subsidized by the pubs anymore to play. So the live music scene that was existing, whether it was in Brisbane, Perth, and particularly in Melbourne, it just basically died on its ass.
Yeah,
And Australian music is subsequently. And there is a correlating timeline with that period. So now take that into the digital space and the way the music industry has gone from, how it went from, now Spotify, etc. It's hard as fuck.
Yeah, so totally. Like this is not that new, right? Looking at the bottom rungs of the career ladder of musicians vanishing.
And once the record companies decided, oh, geez, we can replicate all this music again, the CDs, onto rub our hands, different business model.
People have to repurchase it,
Yeah. I mean, I remember meeting a bloke who'd gone to work in Spotify's generative music division in 2019.
Oh, okay.
Right, so I don't know when they started, and he's all NDA'd up, right? But they've been working on it for at least 6 years, replacing musicians.
Yeah.
And that was before the current generative AI revolution.
One of the criticisms I saw of Spotify recently is that they're producing what do they call it? Like they have fake musicians.
Yeah.
So the scandal is many people, when they play a playlist, if it's just background music, like background jazz, sleep music, they don't really care. Like, is it Miles Davis? Like, who cares? It's
Or Schmavers.
It's just in the background. And so they hire humans to play just music that sounds like jazz, and they don't get paid very much. And then so all the Spotify curated playlists, they love putting all this music on because it doesn't cost them as much in royalties.
Yeah.
And this entire scheme is the big scandal. The fake musicians, they're performing under stage names made by Spotify. So what? Spotify didn't invent stage names. This whole thing, the tech industry, all these people love to bash it.
I think the biggest controversy at Spotify isn't that.
What is the biggest Spotify controversy?
What he's investing in.
Oh, Daniel Mackinlay.
Yeah.
Oh, works in military stuff, isn't it? Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
Is that the biggest scandal?
Yes.
Definitely uninformed on that. But like the notion about like what the broader system that these, this is back to the singularity in our past light code again, right? Like we already had fake music, right? But we just pushed the cost lower. Right, like, but if you work in broadcast production, for example, I forget the name of the service. There's a couple of services where you can type in the name of a song that you think is awesome, but you can't afford to license for your show.
Yeah,
and they'll get you the thing, which is.
Didn't we do that?
Yeah.
Oh no! I actually viewers. So for our intro music, actually,
I wanted the new.
That's right. Yeah,
I sent you the new one.
Where Peter sent me a song that we don't have a big budget for my first party, I used AI to come up with a song inspired by what Peter sent me.
Yes. Totally. So, this is just for a long time that you could find a song inspired by that song. So like you search for "Eye of the Tiger," but you can't afford to. I won't even sing the riff in case we add to the of the podcast. But so you get this other song which is like "Nose" of the Leopard or something, and that sounds it's as close as it can be without being too similar to attract a copyright dispute, right?
Yeah.
And that's standard, right? We've had that for ages, but now. You don't have to wait for them to give you the cut rate version. You just
can generate it yourself. Yeah.
So that happens. But so we've seen what we're doing is accelerating tendencies that already existed. Right. There's kind of given the podcast, I'm going to say, have you run with this idea of Moloch?
Oh, so can you remind me?
So Moloch is this idea that so Moloch is a biblical reference, right? But it's in modern terms, Moloch is the god of playing defect in prisoner's dilemma, right? The god of choosing the easy option that is like leads you ultimately worse off.
Yeah,
that makes sense myopically, and we see a lot of that in how we're running society generally, right? Where everyone's incentivized that your DuPonts and 3Ms, right? Yeah, they're going to make a decision myopically, right? And they're an economy full of corporations which are, let's be real, probably making the same kind of decisions because that's how we've set up the system, right? Is that we reward that behavior so we get more of it, and they're all making this, so that one's releasing that pollutant, that one's releasing other pollutant, that one's causing climate change, whatever, right? All of them independently doing that thing. They would all individually like to have, all those firms that start by people who would individually like their kids to grow up on a planet that wasn't poisonous. But since everyone's going to do the poisoning anyway, it makes no sense for them to be the schmucks.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Fail to release the poison, right? And same for Spotify. Like maybe they'd like to have a world where maybe the come from Sweden, where apparently everyone can play an instrument, right? One of the incredible music education societies.
Yeah.
And that's why Spotify might make sense to come from there. But they ultimately are having something much harder to be a musician in, right? They just, decrease the value of this incredible facility for music that Sweden has. But also, they came out at a time when everyone was trying to be big streaming service. Right? All these, the landscape was littered with streaming services that offered musicians a pretty mediocre deal and really sort of, aiding their royalties. And finally, Spotify was the one that went big because they were, at the right time. But will Spotify create a world in which there aren't as many musicians create amazing music to go on Spotify? Quite possibly they're ultimately self-sabotaging. Yeah. But just because that thing is coming in the pipeline to them in a few decades time. The
generative music,
it maybe, maybe they don't need to worry about it because generative music is better. I don't know. But they certainly aren't, they aren't incentivized to think about that sort of long-term flow-on consequence. In fact, if they're a public listed company, they can be actively punished for thinking about that kind of long-term, problem. Well, we'll erode our market share. There's something that might happen in a few decades' time. No, thank you. That's actionable, right?
Actually, when you speak about Spotify, hoping to make the most of generative music, reminds me Steam. So the platform where many people get their games.
The games,
yeah. I think they banned AI games. Anything with AI in it, they want it gone because that's upsetting their current, Valve or the current game makers.
You mean in the sense of being created, the game's created using AI, or the game employs AI algorithms just inside the loop?
Well, yeah, just anything to do with AI. Steam hates it. They want to ban it. I was reading a case where, the AI was used very minimally in this one particular game. And so the guy, his game was banned from Steam as a result of that.
Fascinating.
I've got the impression it's
in the coding.
Some aspect of the gameplay included an AI decision, I think it was. But anyway, the point is, the motivation seems to be, Electronic Arts, Valve, all these current game companies, they want to stay in business. They see AI development as a threat for games. And so, they're telling Steam, hey, we'll only stick around if you kick away the AI games.
Fascinating. I mean, that sounds very hard to enforce, right?
It was, I think, overkill. The one I was reading about, AI played such a, non-essential part of the game.
It sounds like a Kodak moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the photography.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, it's. Doing something that doesn't involve any element of AI is quite challenging now, right? In the world of publishing research into AI and machine learning, for a while they were there was no AI meaning provide assistance. There was a brief period that said, well, did you use AI to assist this? And then now they ask you, how much of this did AI write? And you went from having to say, I didn't do no AI stuff, to being I was, only 80% or whatever.
Spell check.
Well, even the spell check is very complicated now, right?
But you're right. Actually, Peter, when you mentioned the Kodak moment, have you read? Are you familiar with the Innovator's Dilemma?
Well, tell me which version.
So I think it was written just before Kodak, actually. But the Kodak is a great example of it as well, where the companies are so focused on what they're already doing that they often just refuse. They often don't see the new technology coming. Or when they do see it coming, it's no, but our existing system is so good. Customers won't ever go for this new thing. And so actually in Kodak, I'm pretty sure, the digital camera was invented in Kodak, but they didn't want to. That they saw it as cannibalizing
the business
their photo, the physical film industry. And so it's well, this is our money spinner, the physical film. Why would, this other department is eating into our profits? Fuck them.
And
so, I work for one of the biggest federal government agencies, right? And, I was part of what we call it. We had our own little business improvement team that I was sponsored by my bosses, which was wicked work. But every now and then the organisation would have these, epiphany innovation modes, right? And they'll bring us together to, we had an innovation month, an innovation week, and I'll be that's like planning for spontaneity.
Yeah. You can't.
Yeah. And it's it becomes then it becomes a process for innovation, and it just stifles everything. And again, it's the wrong way of going things.
There was a good point I was reading actually in that the other people's submissions to the Senate thing about adopting artificial intelligence, there was a great point by the Australian National University Centre for Cybernetics. They said that we shouldn't think of AI as a technology. It's really a system. And, you know, I guess the whole study of cybernetics, you know, like if we think of society as a system with all these...
Which is the point, the point you made before about like it's been around for a long time, the system.
Yeah, I think that like the systems that produce this kind of outcomes have been around for a long time. I do think that running them much faster and having the ability to scale up will change some things, right? But yeah, I do think we have a foretaste, right, of the systems that produce this kind of decision.
But yeah, as well, I think in thinking of it as a system and not a technology, we should, when we, you know, bitch and moan about AI, we need to think more about the specific behaviors that are going on. If it's AI or if it's a human doing it, it shouldn't matter. I mean, I encounter people now where like they speak as ChatGPT and they refuse to admit that, you know, like people call them out on it, like, you know, you sound like ChatGPT. Oh no, this is just the way I write. Like at the end of the day, you know, if they're giving all these like, you know, lengthy answers that don't make sense, that have contradictions,
say crucially.
I mean, even
crucially,
like in the Philippines, I heard, for instance, it's illegal to annoy someone, and so, you know, all these, you know, these people are going to get banned because, you know, they use ChatGPT.
Is it quiz time?
Yeah, let's do the quiz.
Okay.
Oh, so yeah, we often like to have like a political quote, some relevant quote, and viewers, if you'd like to guess who it was, Peter also is guessing, he doesn't know the answer, but yeah, Daniel, do you know this one? The quote unquote, the great curse of modern political life is incrementalism. Ooh. This was an Australian.
And the question is, who said it?
Yeah.
Oh my, I definitely have no idea.
The great,
and also how much do we agree with it? Yeah,
the great.
Peter, you would, based on previous people I've quoted from, you would be able to get it. I think.
Well, I'll say Paul Keating.
Oh, okay, it was Paul Keating.
Was it? That's the first one I've guessed.
No, you got Marcus Aurelius in the past as well. I obviously don't have enough.
Nicely done, though. I should have got that. Yeah,
I don't
because I was thinking that's too intellectual for Bob Borg and the other idiots. The only one I thought it was the only one I actually thought I had this intellect was Keating. So
Well, but I think it's why I chose this in relation to AI is because like, you know, Labor is being very wait and see about, you know, artificial intelligence, like we were saying before. And you know, we should have been like taking reins. I mean, when I was running for council, but
you know, we did, right?
Tell me more.
So, like, Australia was a world leader in AI up until 2015, I think, if I remember, NICTA. So one of the top, you know, by independent assessment said that one of the top 5 AI labs in the world. You know, this is a made-up category, right? But like, there's a degree to which independent experts thought that we were up at the forefront of research under NICTA.
Is NICTA still around?
No, we destroyed it. So we defunded that.
That was around the Malcolm Turnbull period of communication minister and so forth.
Yeah, well, it came about, it started around 2000 when the, you know, the dust is still settling from all the Wi-Fi shenanigans. And people decided that maybe this information technology thing, maybe there's some future in this internet stuff, right? And a coalition was assembled to build a new research agency whose special goal was to produce state-of-the-art information communication technology stuff. They hired the best researchers from across the planet, lots of star hires, people who went on to run machine learning for Amazon work there, people who went on to do powerful things in the government, people who went on to found new labs for Google and so on. Real rock stars, all concentrated in a few sites across Australia, and then just 2 years before the takeoff of the large language models, we're like, no, I don't think there's a future in this. And so it started the Victorian government ripping their funding up, but then the feds were like, no, this has to be independently commercially viable.
Yeah, because, you know, we've got something better. It's called the IBN. We're going to get rural people who don't have internet access to make sure they have it. So we're going to put billions into it.
Yeah, what's that one? I think they were going to choose Starlink, weren't they? But then they realised that's not going to...
No, that's not who's going to fund us. We're going to choose something else.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the fund decisions weren't associated with any...
No, but there's always correlations. You're telling me the lane cables across Australia was the best use of future technologies.
I heard there was a whole bunch of corruption going when the National Broadband Network was being rolled out about 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
One of my housemates, her boyfriend was working like for the actual installation of the NBN, and he was saying there's a whole bunch of corruption going on. Like they take the long path to get to anywhere, and
I mean, I think that also there were several versions. I mean, I'm not an expert in the NBN, right? But I was trying to follow it enough at the time, and I was like, when's my fibre getting to my house? And it did seem that the plan changed a lot, right? And when Telstra became deeply implicated in it, which was not the original plan, stuff became vastly more complicated for some kind of reason. And I don't know the trade-offs that happened there, but we had like when the monopoly deployer of the the former monopoly of telecommunications in Australia became involved with the producing its own competitor, maybe something weird happens. Like, I don't know.
But it seems that there's still too much corruption in society. Even in Australia, we rank, I think, 15th or so in terms of corruption. Where like number one is the least corrupt. I think we're about 15 or so. Doesn't it sound about right?
I think we're the most corrupt. With the big four, we're just.
I guess. Well, it takes different flavors, doesn't it? I mean, I've heard, for instance, Chinese people criticizing America, saying like, you have corruption and you just like call differently and legalize it. The whole notion of political lobbying.
Right.
In other parts
of the world. Is it corruption or is it the cost of doing business? Yeah. That's also a difficult,
like you said,
question.
You mean like we don't pay mining tax, right?
Yeah.
And they just take what they want, and why? And our politicians allow, and we allow it. What's that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a choice that we make as a society. But so the other choice we made as a society was to say, we don't think, like, we went from being a world leader in AI to deciding to aggressively divest from AI, right? So it's not like we didn't ever, we made a choice not to try and get ahead of the game. We made a choice to leave the field, right? That's the real decision. So my current employer is kind of the dregs of that, right? I work for Down 61, which is part of CSIRO, who I'm not representing today, but just historically speaking, they rolled up the part of the organisation that weren't hired into other organisations. So bits went to IBM, some of it went to other universities, some of it went to Amazon or Google or whatever, but largely a lot of the expertise left Australia. So we live in a world that was vacated by that particular research choice. Fun history.
I noticed actually we're running out of time.
Oh yeah. Well, okay, we've got one question deep.
Oh, no. But I guess unfortunately we didn't get to spend much time on what Australia should be doing. I've given a few opinions, but Daniel, you're the expert.
Do you
have any tips?
Question number 2.
Question number 2. Who said that? I think the value proposition, right? There's an interesting question right now, which a lot of people are wondering whether there's an AI bubble, right? What does a bubble mean? That's kind of a complicated story, but the question is, are we at the point where it's too late to invest in AI to get anything out of it ultimate returns, which is in large a question about whether it's a new technology that gives you a normal amount of return, or it's a transformative technology that changes everything. I think that, I don't think that experts know the answer to that, right? I think that a legitimate expert opinion is to give a probability weighting. I think it's likely to be transformed in this timescale or not. But I don't think anyone has looked at their crystal ball and knows exactly the limits of running ChatGPT to automate whatever. So there is this kind of question about how much do we hedge our bets around that, right? What a great question. Would love to know the precise ratio. But I think having no attempt to have any sovereignty in there is making a very strong bet, right? We're saying that.
I guess for us to not actually have any AI models ourselves, to just be setting rules about how the foreigners are supposed to behave here.
Yeah. So, for example, to say that to a particular corporate provider to give us turnkey solutions for all our AI needs, for example, we'll be making we can do that. It would be making the bet that we don't think there's any geopolitical reason to have capacity of our own, that any value we get is going to be, there'll never be a problem of monopoly pricing on that, that there'll never be specific jurisdictional needs that we have here that we don't have in places. There's a lot of stuff. So that to me feels like a putting all the eggs in one basket kind of bet. And that seems about the least supportable thing, right? Like you kind of want to you want to have some kind of hedging.
That's the way we seem to be headed at the moment, though. And I would elaborate on your point. Not just about monopolies and that, but in the notion of like companies. There's always a choice. Do we do it in house? Do we buy someone else's solution? Like, how do you define yourself as a company? If this is meant to be part of your skill set that you're selling to customers, like this is what our company does. That thing that your company does that you're pitching to customers, you actually have to do it. And so, running a society, I think absolutely requires artificial intelligence. When we were saying before about how it's not just a technology, it's a system. If you're running a society, it has to be a society where AI is recognized as part of it. And so if you just ignore that as like this afterthought, we'll get bits and pieces of it from the US.
Otherwise, we could end up being all nice to each other like the Philippines. It starts influencing how we start thinking.
If they just outlaw it, But it's such a shame that, like we're increasingly having nothing to add to this debate, that we're just getting all this foreign technology and we'll have to accept whatever's offered to us. I mean, it's all very well, for the Greens and these people to dictate this is how AI is going to operate here.
Can I just get a little caveat to that as far as bashing the Greens? They've never been in power.
Yeah.
And it might be a debate for our next speaker.
Actually, they have.
Well, they haven't.
No.
They haven't.
They
haven't.
They have.
They've never had material governance, and yet it's always convenient to say, the Greens fuck the koala, It's like they haven't done anything.
In the ACT, they've had a power sharing government with Labor, but that's the closest they've got. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so sorry, I'm not choosing to bash the Greens because I hate the Greens. It's because they're one of the only parties who submitted any AI policies. Yeah.
The lesson of that story is don't submit.
But sorry, you were saying, Peter, about you were defending the Greens. So.
No, I'm just saying, like, we always like to pick the small aspect, like bash the ones who are in power that make the decisions.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They're not doing enough. Yeah.
So, we haven't said anything about Barnaby today.
Yeah, what's the... He's not really relevant in terms of AI.
Well, if you give him enough, he will be. Enough of anything.
I would encourage, like all these parties who are just not mentioning anything about AI, it's going to come back to bite you in the arse.
I think they are using it. They just don't want to be engaged in the conversation.
Well, I'll be one of the voters who will remember, like back when these important technologies were emerging, you had nothing to say, and therefore, you're not thinking far enough ahead to really be a relevant leader. Yeah.
Here's a question: what does the public want? Right? Like I don't know what the public wants, but like all these complicated politicians ultimately run a democracy, and the thing that we should I can be like, oh, I'm a scientist, and I think here's a threat of that choice, here's a threat of that choice, and here's my reasons why or whatever. And there's lots of experts who can do that. But ultimately, the person, the body that decides which of these expert opinions to choose, or none of them, is the voting public, right? And I would be very curious to hear, if there is like in some meaningful sense, a will of the people around AI. What is it? What is the majority? What are the discussions being had? Like the fact that this is somehow all not crystallizing into some sort of big social discussion and a social opinion is really fascinating to me. I'm not quite sure why. I would, if please tell me, like, what's going on? What do the public want?
Yeah, you're right. We do need to explore it more. On that point, viewers, if you know anyone with opinions on AI, should we say, please, come on the show.
Opinions on the public opinion, right? Like I think like getting some pollsters in there, getting some people who are doing social organizing like that, I'd be super interested to hear from that. Right?
Let's end on that note. Okay. Daniel, thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Excuse.